The Detroit Pistons have gone guns a-blazing, striking for this first seed in the Eastern Conference and deservingly have owned it, winning 11 straight, tying a franchise record back in 2007 and 2008 with their young core and rise of guys like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duran, and even some two-way players. This team has really impressed, as just 2 seasons ago, they were one of the worst in the NBA, having the worst losing streak in all professional sports history, and now are changing that narrative ever so quickly. So in today's episode of Switch City, we're going to dive in and explore the Detroit Pistons, one of the rising teams here in the Eastern Conference, going over their success, who has really been standing out for this team, and ultimately where I think this team is going to start finishing in this Eastern Conference. Without further ado, guys, let's dive in and let's get into the video at hand today. If you do enjoy the content or have any thoughts on the Detroit Pistons, let me know down below in the comment section. And without further ado, let's get into it. So like I mentioned in the introduction, the Detroit Pistons are going off into this season here, right? They are first in the Eastern Conference, second in the NBA, only behind the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have 1 loss. The Pistons only have 2. They started off this season a little rocky, but have won 11 straight to capitalize to now being 13-2 to being the first seed in the Eastern Conference. And the Eastern Conference obviously has some hindrances to it. Obviously, the Celtics are without Jason Tatum. The Pacers, a division rival of the Pistons, are obviously without Tyrese Haliburton, the 2 teams that represented the East these last 2 years for the conference. But obviously, the Pistons are still a young, rising team and have showcased that through these last couple of years, growing ever so slightly. Last year, they made the playoffs as the 6th seed and were very impressive. And I personally thought the Pistons weren't going to be this high. I had them around 4th in the Eastern Conference predictions, if you want to go back before the season to see where I thought the Pistons would fall, and they are outdoing those expectations exponentially, and due to some of the impressive stuff that we'll get into in a little bit. Obviously, their offense has been very successful here with Cade Cunningham, with some of these shooters, with some of these other young stars rising up. They have a 117.8 offensive rating, which puts them 11th in the NBA, towards the top half, but their defense is what is exceptional. The Pistons throughout history have been notoriously known to be a very physical, aggressive, defensive type of team. That's what is kind of brings them out, dating back to the bad boy Pistons with Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, who's now taking care of the Pelicans. Maybe the Pistons can try to get some connections with Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver, their assistant GM, who used to work for the Pistons, to maybe get another deal to really swindle this team into that next kind of sphere. Have Joe Dumars give his old franchise a little bit of help, but that's besides the case. The defense has been very, very impressive. Guys like Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duran, Ausar Thompson have all dominated for this Pistons team, and they really embody that physicality that the Pistons had once back in the day with those guys, similar to with the Chauncey Billups, Wallace brothers, Rip Hamilton teams that they used to have back in the day. Defensive rating of 109.7, putting them second in the NBA, just behind the Oklahoma City Thunder, one of the other top-tier defensive teams, which gives them a positive net rating of an 8.1, placing them 4th across the entire NBA. Just going to showcase how dominant that defensive practicality is. Shut down these opponents to allow this Pistons team to dominate. And they've been doing this with some injuries as well. As we all know, this team has had some injuries kind of slightly ruin their seasons in the past. And this season, they've had some of these injuries, but are still fighting through it. Guys like Jaden Ivey haven't played the entire season, as he has been returning from his injuries. Supposed to be coming back this week to add some much needed offense to this Pistons team, but he obviously a former lottery pick and another star that the team drafted to put with this young core has missed the entirety of the start of the season. Cade has been down a little bit as well, missing some games. Marcus Sasser got injured as well. He's been out for a little while, and then Bobby Klintman as well is going to be out for a long while as well. Those guys kind of, some bench pieces for this team, some young, intriguing guys. But with those guys going down, the Pistons have seen the rise in other players with this team. And that's what's been really, really impressive for this squad. The defense, obviously, been dominating, like I was saying. Jalen Duran has taken an immediate rise. A lot of people have talked about him for this Pistons team this year, and he really has showcased that. Unfortunately, the Pistons did not extend Jalen Duran, and understandably so. These last couple of seasons, it had been kind of confusing on what his true potential was. He last couple of years wasn't the best defender for this Pistons team and was kind of just seen as maybe like a lob threat, had some injury history, but this season has really changed that way for the Pistons, working more into their offense, being more of a focal point, but on the defensive end as well, really stepping up and being an X factor for this squad. He is going to be due for that extension, and with another guy in Isaiah Stewart, who's also been a great key fundamental part for this defense here in Detroit, being that shot blocker, being that rim protector, but also someone that can stretch the floor a little bit. It's been very impactful for this Pistons squad. A guy in Isaiah Stewart got hurt in the playoffs last year. A guy that I thought if he could have stayed healthy, maybe could have had the Pistons shock the New York Knicks in that first round of a playoff series. And it's clearly been putting to the test this season as well, as he's been one of their major X factors in their front court. And obviously on a $15 million contract, a great steal of a deal, someone that I wanted other teams that I'm a fan of to trade for. I think that the Pistons got a great one in that. You also got Cade Cunningham continuing to shine once again, being that dominant point guard. Many people questioned whether Cade would be that number one star after the Detroit Pistons had some unsuccessful years after Cade had been drafted. He didn't really pop up into that spotlight right away, but last year he clearly showed that he can be that guy that can deliver and be this number one option. I've had conversations with some of my friends where we've talked about Cade Cunningham. Many of them think he can be the best point guard in the East or second best point guard in the East, and I definitely think that he has the capabilities of doing that to rise to those occasions, and he's doing and showcasing that this season as well. And then lastly, I got to give my props to the two-way standout, Dennis Jenkins. He's been prioritized a lot for this team, specifically with Jaden Ivey out, especially with Marcus Sasser being out, kind of being another on-ball creator and someone that can help facilitate this offense alongside Cade Cunningham, and he's been able to step up and deliver that immediately for this team. Someone to keep an eye out for the Pistons as a young piece to kind of rise up the ranks, because once again, he is on a two-way contract, and if the Pistons already see the success so far, they're going to want to give him that guaranteed contract so that he can get himself into this roster and being ready to play for the playoffs, which I think he's already showcased that he does deserve to have for this Pistons team, as we've seen in these last couple of games where he's been able to be exceptional for this squad. So ultimately, for this Pistons squad, I've really been impressed with how everything has kind of meshed together well. Obviously, I think a lot of people didn't see the rise for this Pistons team as many people. A lot of people saw them getting better, but in an Eastern Conference where the Cavs were kind of that dominant team the last couple of seasons and were projected to be as well this year, with teams like the New York Knicks and Orlando Magic making moves, the Pistons had kind of, and even Atlanta Hawks, the Pistons were kind of in that middle of the pack where they didn't really make that many external moves to really take them to that next step, but they also did go out and make some smart moves and investing in some internal growth and development, but also bringing in guys like, Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert, who have also been helping out on that offensive end here for the Pistons. And if we look at the salary cap for this Pistons team as well, this is very, very beneficial. Not only do they just have Cade Cunningham, who's on his extension, they have guys like Jaden Ivey and obviously Jalen Duren, who they're going to have to extend after this season, with both being restricted free agents if they want to kind of bring those back. But they have the flexibility with having salary cap available not only this offseason, but tradable contracts as well. Tobias Harris was brought into this Pistons team obviously last year on a pretty comfortable contract, playing that role for the Pistons as, a tertiary or fourth kind of three-point scorer on the wing, someone that could play some solid defense and kind of be just that veteran leader. I do think that his contract could be a tradable one for this Pistons team if they want to take that next step. I know a lot of people have mocked maybe a Lauri Markkanen trade to the Pistons, maybe a little bit before this kind of insane run kind of went on, but still something that could be possible used with the Tobias Harris contract and some other fillers that they have on this team. They also have, once again, some really nice young pieces as well, guys like Ausar Thompson, Ron Holland, who's been trying to find his way in rhythm through this year, Jalen Duren, like I've mentioned, Marcus Sasser, who's been injured. So I do believe that this Pistons squad does have some flexibility going into the seasons where they can realistically look at their squad, kind of invest and see who's going to stick around and work with this team. They clearly have found those key pieces in Cade, Ausar, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, some of these other guys that have come into the season, Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert as the offensive pieces, but guys that could potentially be traded or moved, like a Tobias Harris, maybe a Jaden Ivey if he doesn't really fit in when he comes back as another offensive piece. Those could be guys to go out and utilize to make this offense even stronger, bringing them up from a 11th ranked offense, maybe even into a top 4 or top 5 offense, or even if not that 7-8, to even help them get a little bit better of a net rating and just prove the dominance of this Pistons team even more. I do think obviously there's no rush to really do this, because in an Eastern Conference where Cade Cunningham is still, a young player here in the NBA, for this team, I do believe that they still have those opportunities coming in at 24. Like we said, they do have a young core with him, Isaiah Stewart, who's also 24, Jaden Ivey, who's 24, Sarr, who's 23, Ron Holland, who's 20, Jalen Duran, who's 23, 22. So they do still have some time to all kind of grow and kind of get to those next steps so they don't have to rush it. But they also, could go in, make some small moves on the edges to add some more offensive pieces to take this team to that next step, to be into those conversations of, hey, we're the Detroit Pistons, we're a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, top 3 team in the NBA, and we're going to have our voices heard of being a potential NBA Finals team and someone that can make waves similar to like the Pacers, similar to like the Cavs in our division these last couple seasons, to really shake things up and force other teams to really realize who is here. And that is the Detroit Pistons. After some daunting years of some unsuccessful rebuilds and just bad trades and bad mismanagement, the Pistons are now taking that bright light into those next steps, and I'm more excited for their fans than ever. They definitely deserve this, and I'm very excited to see what this team can do going into these next steps here. Obviously, like I mentioned, it still is early on in the season, but they clearly have showcased that they can still be a dominating team from last year, growing internally, and I think will be one of the top teams here going into the playoffs if they can still solidify on that physicality and defensive pressure that they have maintained for their franchise, and especially this season. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, what you guys ultimately think about the Detroit Pistons, if they have been a very exciting team coming into this year. And I thought that I would want to talk about them after talking about some, miserable teams here on the channel so far, diving into teams like the Mavericks and the Kings kind of having some abysmal seasons. I wanted to shine some light and some positivity to a Detroit Pistons team that definitely deserves it. So once again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, what you guys ultimately think on this Pistons team. If I missed anything, if there was any players that I didn't really highlight, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section on who's been making some more impacts for this Pistons squad. And if you do enjoy the content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Like I said, we'll have videos coming out here on the channel, hopefully multiple times a week, but I'm going to try to do at least once a week going into the season, talking about different players, different teams, potential trades, all of that jazz. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out, everyone.